For this video, I'm going to talk about the moon in the signs and also the houses as well. This is not scripted. It's a little prepared, but I just really wanted to just go off the cuff and not really rehearse this, meaning that, it's the moon series, so I really wanted to base it in emotion and how I explain things. So here we go. So we have moon in Aries. So those who have moon in Aries, it's a very impulsive, quick energy. Feelings come in pretty intense. And usually those who have moon in Aries, unless they have maybe in their big three, sun, moon, and rising, if they have more fixed energy or maybe more earth energy to help them be more grounded, typically those with moon in Aries will act before they think. And honestly, I love moon in Aries because it reminds me of think about like a child having a temper tantrum, right? They're feeling their emotions raw. Their parent tells them, hey, you can't have this chocolate. Like, we could be in the grocery store, you cannot have this piece of candy. That child will thrash themselves on the floor. They'll cry. Their arms and legs are everywhere. They're kicking whatever is around them. They're just feeling pure, raw emotion. And those who have moon in Aries, you will always be able to tap into that. You'll see a toddler and see them react to something that they want that they can't have. That's very much of an Aries thing too. Is moon in Aries, if there's something that they want, you might have a very strong emotional reaction if you can't give it to them or you say that they can't have it. The moon in Aries is like very much in their feelings, and they just want to go with what they feel. These people might be very impulsive. If they feel something, they're gonna go for it. And that's the beauty in moon in Aries, is that they see something, they want it, they go for it. It's a reaction. Where they just there's no filter to their desires and their wants. They want something, they desire it. There is nothing in their mind, there's nothing that should be an obstacle to get what they want. It's almost like insulting for something to get in the way. So, but because of this, those with moon in Aries, they can be very emotionally honest. It's kind of like almost a pimple popping. They might have all this burst of energy, but kind of once it pops, they'll just move on to the next thing. Aries is a cardinal sign, meaning that it initiates, and then with it being fire, so it's just it might burst, it might implode, but once it does, it kind of dissipates and kind of just goes on to the next thing that's on their mind. So yeah, that's like the beauty of moon in Aries, like having a spirit that is of a quick temper, impulsivity, but it's just so honest and it's so straightforward. People with moon in Aries, like I said, unless they have other things that make them more fixed or more grounded or allow them a little bit more variety or flexibility, if they have more mutable energy, usually you'll just they wear their emotions on their sleeves, moon in Aries. And so I have this little opening, more like a closing because I'm winding up on moon in Aries. But to the soul born under a moon in Aries, your fire is sacred. You came here to feel boldly, to act instinctively, and to remind others the desire itself is divine. So that's the beauty of moon in Aries, is that you will remind those who maybe have adopted more filters, who maybe their instinct is to think before they act. And in life, sometimes it is good to just act without a filter. Of course, we could all see how that could be very reckless. to act before you think. But there's something genuine, there's something pure, and it's almost something childlike about just Christmas morning. You see your presents in front of you and you just freak out. You're excited, you're happy, you're crying and happy tears. There's something just there's beauty in just letting emotions be as they are. Especially if, you're not harming anyone or affecting anyone. Definitely it's beautiful to see someone experience all the emotions that they have. So that's Moon in Aries. Next we have Moon in Taurus. Now this is an exalted placement. The reason being is because Taurus is fixed Earth. And it is placed in a planet that is known to be ruled by Cancer, which is mutable water. Right? So the reason why it's exalted is because that's what the moon needs a healthy dose of as a planet, astrologically speaking, because it's like the moon is ruled by Cancer, and Cancer is cardinal water, right? Earth and water are both feminine. So that's why the moon feels comfortable in Taurus, because it's like, okay, you're not a water element, right? Taurus is Earth, you're Earth, but you're still feminine. That's nice. And then the moon is also, okay, so you're Earth, but then you're fixed. You kind of let me dive into my emotions. I'm not kind of like going here and there with emotions. I'm able to actually feel grounded in emotions. Like I'm able to feel emotions. Like this is when you have an emotional reaction and you're able to really just sit in it and sit still and really feel it. Say if something, you're thinking about something that made you sad. Like other signs that might want to process more quickly, or they want to maybe over process their emotions, or they might just want to, kind of like how I was speaking about Moon and Aries. Moon and Aries might just want to feel and get it over with, right? Moon in Taurus lets you process your emotions in a healthy balance of like, you get to process them, but you're not quickly moving to the next emotion before you're ready, or before your heart is ready to move on, right? So with Moon in Taurus, people with this placement, comfort, consistency, touch is very key for sure. They could feel a lot of emotions, but they're not going to let it shake them. That's where the fixed part of Taurus comes from, is that they could feel emotions so greatly. And that's the beautiful thing. It's fixed, right? I keep saying fixed, but you get to kind of really sit in emotion, kind of think like Taurus is like one of the most stubborn signs. But if you think about someone who has their feet firmly planted on the ground, it's harder to kind of push them over. And that's the thing with emotions. If you know how you feel, someone can't manipulate you to make you feel something different. And that is truly a strength, and that is why Moon in Taurus is exalted. And that's the beautiful thing of Taurus, is that that placement allows someone to really slow down and to really like evaluate how they feel. And it's definitely hard with someone who really taps into the gifts that can come from this placement. It's hard to sway them. It's hard to convince them that that they're safe when they're not, or to convince them that they're unsafe when they actually in fact are very safe within themselves. It's someone with this placement, or people with this placement, can really teach others how to really like learn to trust your emotions. It's like a forever feeding loop. They trust their emotions, and their emotions almost in a way have their own intelligence, and trust the Moon in Taurus person that they will take care of the emotions. It's almost kind of like the emotional intelligence are off the charts with someone with this placement, pretty much. So I leave with this closing statement. To the soul with a Taurus moon, your body is a temple and your spirit is a garden. You are here to feel deeply through the senses and remember what it means to be rooted. So like I was saying, like someone with this placement is very rooted, but the last thing I just kind of want to talk about is that the earth signs are all about the senses. So the moon in Taurus, you will forever remember with that fixed nature. You will forever remember how someone or something made you feel. You know, especially when it comes to your senses, you'll remember how something or someone smells and you'll have an emotional reaction to it. How they smell, touch, taste, how someone looks or how something looks. Just think about those five senses. You're definitely emotionally wired to remember sensory information. So that's moon in Taurus. So the next placement I want to talk about is moon in Gemini. So Gemini is a mutable air sign that is in a placement ruled by Cancer, which is, once again, cardinal water, right? Gemini is a masculine sign. But I think why the moon in Gemini could also still be a pretty good placement. Not good as in, you know, there's good and bad, but like compatible is, I guess, the best way to say it. Moon in Gemini could still be compatible, even though Gemini is masculine and the moon is definitely a feminine celestial body. Gemini has that mutable energy about it. Mutable meaning that it can be very flexible, adaptable. It can change with the tides, literally. Like Gemini understands the motion of ebb and flow. Even though ebb and flow is more related to water, Gemini is similar in nature, as in the fact that Gemini is more like a wind that blows to and fro. So those with moon in Gemini, they will definitely... emotions and words and communication mean a lot. Those with this placement, you have to be careful how you speak things to them, how you word things, your tone, the words you choose, your body language, the volume. Those with moon in Gemini are very sensitive to how people communicate, because depending on how and what you communicate to them will affect them emotionally. So with moon in Gemini, it can be like a nervous, jittery energy at times, because Gemini is so mutable. Like Gemini is able to be almost as mutable as it wants to be, but then there's like the friction comes from, like I said, like Gemini being masculine and the moon being a feminine celestial body. There could be kind of like difficulty with how to express oneself emotionally. There could be like hesitancy to they'll feel the emotions and they'll go back and forth, but there might be like a difficulty or maybe like an awkwardness in how you express yourself emotionally. There might be for instance, if something moves you and you're sad, someone tells you some news and the way that they say it just hits you so hard, but because there's like maybe the incompatibility of the masculine and feminine energy at play, the moon is comfortable in a nurturing, loving environment, especially when someone is upset. But when you have Gemini there, Gemini might want to articulate, might want to intellectualize, might want to put some type of logic. And that's the thing that kind of is a little difficult. Whenever a moon is in an air sign, there might be a want to kind of think before feeling. And it's almost like a fear or a mistrust of feelings with air signs, because it's difficult to feel something and not try to bridge it to the mind, because it's almost like their emotions live in their mind. It's such a conundrum when you talk about air signs and water signs, because moon is ruled by Cancer, which is a water sign, and air signs are usually more focused on the cerebral, like third eye, throat chakras, and you would say water signs are more in the heart chakra. I would also say a little bit of the sacral chakra as well. So it's like trying to find a frequency between the two, or trying to go back and forth between those two, or a couple of chakras, you know, and trying to find a good balance between the two. That's the thing about moon and Gemini. It's a juggling act to figure out how to like be true to your mind, but also be true to your heart. There's a struggle with that. And I probably went on a little bit longer about that, but I just want to make that clear, because as I talk about moon in Libra and moon in Aquarius, there's a similar tug of war between the mind and the heart. It's just a little bit different, just because the signs, each sign focus on something different. So that's moon in Gemini. Now, moon in Cancer. Moon in Cancer, people with this placement, they're at home. They're very comfy. They're very comfy with their emotions. They're very comfy with knowing how they feel. They trust their emotions. But I think also too, the thing about this, and the reason why, like, there's a difference between moon in Taurus being exalted and moon in Cancer just being in its ruler sign, or just being comfortable in its own energy, is that there is no added strengths. There's no weaknesses to take it away, but there's no added strengths to kind of make it, you know, go above and beyond. It's like, it's kind of a thing where people could get stuck in being comfortable. It's almost like a good way to explain this is like if someone stays at a job that they're comfortable. They know everyone there. They know the workflow. They know everyone's name. They can make small talk with any person. They know exactly the routines. They know the ins and outs of the place. They know the difference between what's going to happen Monday versus Wednesday, because they just consistently have been going to the same job for years on end. But the thing is that, okay, cool. They're not in a toxic work environment. They're not having to compete. They know their job. They're competent at what they do. The only thing is that there's no room for growth, right? They know how to do their job so well that it has become automatic, to the point where there's like no room for growth. Like if someone knows their job so well, many times people might encourage them, like, hey, do you want to do something different, or do you want to kind of advance in what you're doing? Do you want to go to the next level? So that's where I say moon in Cancer is it's nice to be that comfortable, but also too, there might be a lack of a push to really explore how why does this like upset me? You know, I know it upsets me, and I'm okay with being upset, but there might be a lack of wanting to. This is where like moon in Cancer might learn from someone with a moon in their air sign, because people look at moon and air signs and they're like, I don't want to be you. I don't want to overthink and over process my emotions. I just want to be in my emotions and let my emotions be as they are. But I think there's always something to learn from another placement, even if it's at a detriment, because what moon in Cancer can learn from other signs is how you can maybe challenge yourself emotionally. Maybe learn from moon in Aries. They might seem very impulsive and might seem reckless, but maybe there is a lesson in learning how to take a risk, because sometimes things that are worth having might take a little risk. And not a huge risk where it's like a risk to your life, but like a little risk where like, hey, I think I'm going to apply for this promotion, and just kind of like, you know, learn from other signs how to, maybe I should understand why I'm upset. Why do I get upset every time this commercial comes on? Like, I know I'm upset and I let myself cry when I see this sad commercial, but what about it is making me get so triggered every time that I cry, like, see it, I cry? Or if there is a chance to be promoted, let me take the risk. Let me kind of like dive in. Let me act before I think, or let me act before I feel, you know, like, sorry, backtrack that. Let me let me just act on my feelings instead of just kind of just feeling the feelings. Because those who have moon and water signs usually just feel the feelings. Um, Fire signs act on the feelings. Air signs intellectualize the feelings. And then the earth signs, I would have to say they use their five senses to associate or to connect with their feelings, if that makes sense. So, yeah, that would be moon in Cancer. Just leave you with this little quote: to the Cancer moon soul, you are the sacred vessel, the tide, the mother's memory. So, the next placement is moon in Leo. Now, moon in Leo is very interesting. I have people around me, very close to me, who have moon in Leo. Leo is a fixed fire sign. And once again, the moon is ruled by Cancer, which is a cardinal water sign. Once again, Leo is fire, which is masculine. So there is that maybe incompatibility with it being a sign that is masculine in a feminine with, you know, like it's in the placement of the two, like the Leo being, I'm having a hard time articulating this part, but Leo is masculine and it's trying to work with the moon, which is feminine. Because fire signs are masculine in the fact that they're very action oriented, very much like when you think of any of the fire signs, they kind of are very much like either very like direct or true to themselves, or very solid in their confidence and what they know, or especially how they feel. So moon in Leo, what's nice is that Leo does have that fixed energy that Cancer needs to really kind of sit in that emotion. The thing though with moon in Leo is that they can be very proud. There's like strong affection there. And then there's a need to feel emotionally secure because they have such a fire that burns within them. When I've talked about moon and Leo before, I always think about like a fireplace. You know, it's fixed, so it kind of like has that continuous fuel of putting more wood into the fire. But sometimes that masculine versus the feminine energy might have a hard time expressing that emotion in a way that's like nurturing or loving. Like Leos of all, like, because they're just like very playful. This is like this is like fifth house energy where it comes to dating and playfulness and being very childlike. It's similar to moon and Aries in the fact that like their emotions could be very much like very joyful, very happy. When they're happy, they're happy. And they kind of sit in that happiness for a while. But also too, the thing with moon and Leo is that they can kind of like be stuck in emotions a little too long. And the thing is that, like I said, they might be stuck in an emotion, but not know how to express it in a loving, nurturing way because of just the masculine way that Leo is. So, yeah, it's just like they can be very passionate, very generous. And then you want to be seen just for who you are, not what you do. Like, people with moon and Leo can definitely have like a very big heart about them. They just love joy and they can sit in joy for a while. But the thing is that with Moon and Leo, you kind of have to remind them there's no such thing as being happy all the time. There's no such thing as being sad all the time. It's sometimes, yes, it's good to be fixed and sit in your emotion. This is true. But sometimes you don't want it to be so much that your fire starts to burn out because it's just been going for so long. That's literally like Moon and Leo. So that's like something to keep in mind. If you have your Moon in Leo, they can be very prideful too, but also proud. They can be very genuinely proud. They want to feel proud of the people that they love. For sure. They want to feel like, hey, when I look at the people I love, I look at them and I have an admiration for them. I'm inspired by them. Those who have Moon in Leo really need that in order to feel love. But at the same time, like, you have to kind of remind those in this, with this placement, that it's okay for someone to feel insecure sometimes. It's okay for you to feel insecure sometimes. You just never want to over process or oversaturate yourself in any one emotion, is all that I want to kind of like say with that. So to the moon, to the Leo moon soul, your heart is a sun and your feelings burn brightly with purpose. So yeah, that was Moon in Leo. Next, we have Moon in Virgo. So this is where Virgo is an earth sign. It is feminine. So the moon feels comfortable with the femininity of Virgo. Especially because Virgo has a very, like, especially with the sixth house, has a very like service oriented vibe about it. Virgo wants to be in service of others. So sometimes those with Moon in Virgo, they might overextend themselves, especially with the mutable energy. They feel like they could be, provide emotional needs to any and everyone. You know, they can kind of like see where someone is at. If they're sad, they feel like, hey, let me get you some tissue and a blanket. You're upset, hey, you know what? Let's step outside. Let's have some cool air. Why don't we breathe? And we'll talk about it once you calm down. Like, because of that mutable energy, they can be very flexible and providing the emotional needs of other people. The thing with that, though, at the same time, is that Virgo has that mutability that also that the moon has as well. So there's no like grounding energy in a sense, because that's the thing, that's the conundrum about Virgo, is that it is a mutable earth sign. So yes, it is an earth sign and it's feminine, but it's almost kind of like it becomes more, it's like the only sign that actually, to be honest with you, Virgo is the only sign that's neutral. Virgo is technically, in some astrology books, is not considered feminine or masculine. And it's almost like a non-binary energy with Virgo. So when you think of that, and then you add the it being mutable, or it could be flexible, adaptable, or whatever, it could camouflage so well. Moon in Virgo, they could fit the emotional needs of anyone. But that's the thing with it, though, is that sometimes there's so much flexibility, adaptability. There's no grounding in energy to kind of really sit in any one energy. Like, you could express yourself in so many ways that maybe you kind of get so lost in all the different ways you could express yourself that you might not end up expressing yourself emotionally at all. So and then, yeah, like, Mercury is ruled by both, I believe, Virgo and Gemini. I'm pretty sure. But, yeah, it's like you kind of, are able to kind of really see emotional needs. And if you're able to meet nearly anyone's emotional needs, that means you're very perceptive of what's going on with you or someone else emotionally, right? I think the issue is that there's sometimes with kind of being so adaptable, so flexible, so much of a camouflage, so much of a emotional chameleon, that you might shift from emotion to emotion and not actually ever get to, like, you don't let yourself grieve maybe situations as long as you should to really process that emotions, because there's no fixed energy. Also, you might be so adaptable that you acclimate to what's going on in the room when you walk in. You might walk into a room, feel the energy and know what it needs, and you'll provide that need so fast before you even get to like feel what other people are feeling. You're so quick. And that's the beautiful thing about Virgo, is that it's just so wanting to help or so wanting to connect. But sometimes you need to sit with your own emotions first and remind yourself what it feels to be like sad or mad, and instead of trying to focus on others or focus on trying to fix things. That's the thing about Virgo, is that there's that perfectionistic tendency, but there's no such thing as being perfect emotionally. Emotions are just what they are. And there's no fixing it, making it perfect, modifying it. No. Like, of course you want to, when you emotionally react, you don't want to harm others. You don't want to say anything that you regret. But sometimes emotions are not so clean and cut. And I think Moon in Virgo really wants emotions to be just in this box and in that box. They want to organize and they want to declutter emotions. And yes, you can have skeletons in the closet that need to be processed, but Virgo kind of is the opposite extreme of that, where you're always wanting your emotions to be clear and clean. Like, I feel like Moon in Virgo, people with displacement might struggle to feel sad and mad at the same time, or they might struggle with the concept of happy tears, where someone is crying in joy. Not that they can't feel these emotions, but it just seems so messy. It seems like it's crossing over things. You know, Virgo is like that Moon in Virgo is like that person who doesn't like their food to touch. But sometimes to really live life and not to overthink it is to sometimes things are going to just touch. They're going to be messy. Sometimes you're going to, the mashed potatoes and sometimes the gravy from your mashed potatoes are going to spill in to your mac and cheese, So with that, I would like to say, like with Moon in Virgo, to the Moon in Virgo, you are the quiet healer, the sacred observer, the one who feels through service. So that was Moon in Virgo. Now we have Moon in Libra. So, Libra, I realize now I've been saying Moon is a mutable energy. It is mutable in the fact that it's ebb and flow, but Cancer itself is cardinal. So Cancer, the sign that is that rules the moon, or moon rules Cancer. Yeah, that is that way. Moon rules Cancer, and Cancer is cardinal. Libra is cardinal. So the moon is familiar with that cardinal energy, that initiation, that beginning, the opening credits, the opening scene of someone's story, especially the emotional opening scene of someone's story, right? Like the first emotion that you feel. The thing about Moon in Libra, though, is Libra is masculine. So this is interesting. The best way I could describe Moon in Libra is when there's always like this trope or this like cliche that when a man and a woman completely in her feminine energy and a man that is completely in his masculine energy, imagine them having an argument and what each one of them is saying is making sense, but for some reason there's a disconnect between them two. It's as if like it's when you hear couples who have been like together for a while, or partners who have been together for a while, and it doesn't have to be a man or a woman, but you could see like when there's a partner who's more in their masculine energy and another one that's more in their feminine energy, when you could kind of see, depending on like if they're newer in their relationship versus someone who's been in their relationship for a while. Because you'll see that dynamic of people trying to figure out, like, oh, my partner's coming to me, they want to vent about work, I want to solve their problem, I want to, like, figure this out, I want to use my mind to solve the problem of their heart. And you can kind of see, this was once again where I'm saying that there's a struggle between the mind and the heart once again, because Libra is an air sign. And not only that, Libra is an air sign that thinks of others. They think of others, right? They think for others, of others. But it's a cerebral way of taking care of other people. It's a mental way of taking care of other people. The way that maybe a moon in Libra might show love to other people is like, hey, they see that you're in your car, you plug in your phone, your cords are all over the place. This is a little bit moon in Virgo too, by the way. They'll see that your cords are all like tangled up, or you can never seem to have a cord that works with your phone. So what a moon in Libra will do, they'll think of ways to make your life better. So what they'll do is that they'll try to get you like a pack, a 3, 4, 5 pack of charger cords, or they'll get you the one that recoils back, or they'll get you the little Velcro, I forget what it's called, but it's like a Velcro thing that you could kind of, like a Velcro rope or something that allows you to, that allows you to kind of like organize your cords better. They're the ones that's what Moon and Libra does. They love with their mind, not with their heart. They want the best for others, and they're always thinking of others, but sometimes they forget to feel with others. And they forget to not do, but just to be with others and their emotions. Because I think Libra can sometimes be very afraid of, they could be afraid or mistrust their emotions because, like I said, there's just a disconnect between like the third eye and the throat chakra, between the heart chakra and the solar plexus, right? Because that's where kind of the moon lies, is the heart chakra, and a little bit of the root chakra too, because Cancer is also the 4th house, and the 4th house is also like stability, security, family. Like that sounds like all root and sacral chakra stuff. So you kind of have to find somewhere in the middle to be. And then it's also too, you might feel that you're emotionally stable when the other people are emotionally stable. It's like you could be so sensitive to the energies of others, is that like you it's like that. It's literally the opposite of Moon and Aries. Moon and Aries feels what they feel and they act on it, regardless of how other people feel, what's going on with everyone else. Sometimes Moon and Aries will even act a way that is counterintuitive to what they even like, because they feel a feeling so strong. Even if they think something differently than how they feel, they will always honor the feeling first. Libra is the opposite, where they will always prioritize, or they will always commit to the thought, their mind, their beliefs. They will always commit to that first, regardless of how they feel in the situation. Even if there's like a heart and mind disconnect, they will usually retreat to the mind over the heart. And that's where the issue lies with Moon in Libra, is that they just need to learn a little bit from their opposite sign of Moon in Aries, also in the same hand. Moon in Aries can learn from a Moon in Libra, because sometimes, yes, you need to think before you act, you know? Before you do something super reckless that ends up harming someone else, before you cut someone off on freeway that ends up causing an accident, maybe you should have thought about how you executed that before you just acted on feeling. So that is the beauty of Moon in Libra, but it's just a reminder to be like, hey, sometimes it is okay to just act, and then to act on a feeling and then reflect on it later. But that takes time and practice if your natural instinct is always to be in your head. So with Moon in Libra, I just want to leave to the Libra moon soul, your emotions move through connection, beauty, and balance. You are the harmonizer of hearts. But sometimes it's okay to feel conflict. It's okay to sit in uncomfortable feelings. It's okay to be passionate about something and disagree with someone else. You don't always have to explain things in a way that is digestible for other people. Sometimes it's more important to be true to your own emotions and not to always prioritize everyone else's, you know? So I'm going to get off that. I'm not trying to preach and all this other stuff, but I just wanted to make that clear. Okie doke. So the next sign I want to talk about is Moon in Scorpio. Now, this is an interesting one because Moon in Scorpio is considered to be a fall, actually, a detriment. No, not a detriment. Moon in Capricorn is the detriment. But the moon falls when it's in Scorpio. Scorpio is fixed. So yes, the moon does well in fixed signs, typically, from what I've seen. The downfall is that Scorpio is a water sign. So it's a lot of water, but it's, how do I explain this? So, there is a depth to emotion when it comes to Moon in Scorpio. The depth is so intense sometimes that it's hard to feel lighter emotion. I think those with Moon in Scorpio are so comfortable with heavy emotion. You know, like they're very comfortable in deep depression, intense anger, immense happiness. But the thing is, the reason why the moon falls in Scorpio is because the moon needs that ebb and flow. And to ebb and flow, you can't be at the bottom of the ocean. You kind of need sometimes to come up to the surface for air and feel the move of the tides. You can't feel the move you can't feel the move of the tides like miles under sea. And that's where Moon in Scorpio likes to like reside in, is way below the surface, down in the part of the ocean where scientists still haven't discovered most of the sea creatures there, because there's a comfortability with the mystery of it all. You feel protected. No one's vulnerable. Like, you can't be vulnerable if you're leagues underneath the sea, right? It's easier to fish for fish if the fish is at the top. You could just get a fishing net and catch a fish. And Moon in Scorpio is very aware of that they don't want to be just scooped up and be vulnerable and left for attack. That's why they don't like being on the surface. But that's the thing about emotions, is that it will make you feel vulnerable. It is something that is meant to be experienced. And sometimes the fear of vulnerability can cause someone to really just stay in the depths of the sea and not really experience all that there is to experience. A couple of things, and that's why it's just like, I think those with Moon in Scorpio, they just feel so sensitive. And when they've been hurt, they feel that hurt so deeply, so strongly, so intensely. And it's almost like that becomes that pain. When it comes to however they were hurt, it's just they adopt that identity, and it's hard to break out of. And that's the reason why, even though Scorpio is a water sign, that fixed energy in emotion is what kind of caused it to be in a fault. So, yeah, you feel everything. You don't need to like articulate. You're not in your head at all. This is not a moon and air sign situation where you have an issue of choosing your mind over your heart. That's not it. You choose your heart so much that it's almost like your emotional pain becomes like your own identity, but you are way more than just your pain. So, and then just like a couple of characteristics is like, I think there's a need to kind of learn to forgive and forget. That yes, you feel things deeply, but there is a way to handle emotions. You're not really meant to sit in one feeling and oversaturate it for a long extended period of time, you know? And but I will say, those with Moon in Scorpio, when you love someone, you love them hard. You love their flaws. You love their imperfections. When you love so hard. And that's why you're very careful of who you give your love to, because you don't want to be taken advantage of, because it gets that much harder to get over something the next time. But I would implore you, a couple things I want to read for you is, to the moon in Scorpio, you are the keeper of sacred intensity, of emotional truth beneath the surface. I would like you to start saying this to yourself if you could. My depth is a gift. I trust the wisdom of my emotions. I rise from what tried to bury me. And that's the whole thing I want you to just focus on, is just trying to rise and slowly. You don't gotta go all the way up to the surface, but just kind of like a whale. Come up for air sometimes, So yeah, that's moon in Scorpio. And then the next sign we have moon in Sagittarius. So Sagittarius is a masculine sign, but it is also mutable. It has that flexibility. That's why I think like Sagittarius can be a very in a way it's almost like a balanced masculine energy, because it's like, yeah, it's set in masculinity, but it's like it can flow back and forth from femininity and masculinity, it has a more free, because Sagittarius is the untamed horse, so like the Mustang, if you will. And with that, think about that energy, like the moon in that energy, it can cause someone to be like, they want to feel free to roam. They can be restless, friendly, optimistic. And usually their issue is overdoing it, not underdoing it. That's usually like most fire signs anyways. They always kind of do the most, rather than lacking in anything, in any effort, But that's the thing too, like kind of like with other mutable signs, emotions can change pretty quickly. And that's kind of like what is missing in this scenario, is that fixed energy to kind of really sit in emotion. They want to kind of like do whatever is more fun. They want to choose the fun thing. They want to choose the exciting thing. They want to choose the free thing. And sometimes you do need to kind of have that fixed energy and sit in something, even if it makes you a little uncomfortable. I think Sagittarius wants to be would rather feel all the positive emotions, but none of the negative emotions, because the negative emotions kind of impedes on their freedom, on their spirit. So yeah, there's also that issue with the fire signs, especially with Sagittarius, because it can kind of go here and there. Cardinal is just like direct, forward. I want this, I'm going for it. That's like very much Aries, and that's cardinal energy's initiation. Sagittarius could kind of like go with the flow, but also too in the way that they kind of like ebb and flow. They're not really committed to any emotion. And sometimes you do need to be committed to an emotion to really understand how you feel. So with that being said, didn't really have much to say about moon and Sagittarius, because like the energy itself is very direct. Like Sagittarius wants to be happy and free and roam. They don't want to be sad. They don't want to be tied down to anything that feels heavy. But that's the thing. Sometimes you do need to feel heavy emotion. It's kind of like the moon in Sagittarius is the opposite of moon in Scorpio. Scorpio likes to be intense, in the deep, loves the mystery, loves the weight of everything, loves the gravity. Sagittarius is the opposite. They don't want any gravity. They don't want anything heavy on them. They want their emotions to be light. They want the people, and they're going to probably be more attracted to people who have more lighter energy and a lightness and airiness to them, But with moon and Sagittarius, I leave you with this. To the Sagittarius moon, you are the philosopher of feelings, the seeker of soul truth. And then to remember this, my joy is sacred. I am free to feel and free. Oh, sorry. Let me say this again. My joy is sacred. I am free to feel and free to grow. So yeah, That was moon in Sagittarius. Now, the next one is moon in Capricorn. Now, moon in Capricorn is at a detriment. Even though Capricorn is also feminine, Capricorn is cardinal. So it's almost like it's so much like Cancer that is actually a detriment. The thing about that people don't understand about astrology is that, like, not to say like everyone is just like, I know so much more than everyone else. That's not what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to say, like, a common misunderstanding when it comes to compatibility is that sometimes people think that you have to be exactly like your person in order for you all to be compatible and get along. And actually, that's not true. There needs to be a good balance of, there needs to be a good amount of similarities between you two, but there also needs to be enough differences to kind of create that friction. Like, sexual tension is friction. It's conflict. When you have too much conflict, that's when someone is an enemy to you. If you have not enough tension and not enough conflict and not enough, like, engines that are revving, if the engines are not revving, then that's when you have people who are platonic friends, people who have more like a sibling energy about them, because that friction is what causes someone to be romantically interested in someone else. You need a balance of the two. Like, is this person relatable? But also, too, is this person also someone who can kind of get under my skin in a way that, like, kind of fires up the passion, right? So this is when moon in Cancer is like a placement that literally is like a person who got friend zoned because there wasn't enough friction. There wasn't enough room for growth. There wasn't enough to kind of like make the other person like, hey, I'm not like this, but it would be awesome to kind of like learn to be a little bit more like this person. Like, and the lack of having that in moon in Capricorn is the reason why it's in a detriment. So, but if you have this placement, honestly though, like I said, everything in your chart, like, I got things that are in a detriment. I got things that fall in my chart. So, like, if you think I'm not trying to, like, discourage you or make anyone feel some type of way of having a placement in a detriment, I have placements that are in a detriment. So, the thing about this and the people who have this placement, typically, like, you put on a lot of responsibility on yourself. And this is where I'm saying that's where it shows up as, like, there's not enough friction to improve, where it's like people with moon in Capricorn, they could take the shirt off their back even if it's negative 10-degree weather. They'll do it to make sure someone else is good. They want people to feel like, and that's the thing, Capricorn is a provider, and that's the reason why it's such a hard placement, because the moon is the nurturer, but Capricorn is a sign that provides, that is all about provision and career. It's all about being the breadwinner. It's all about bringing home the bacon. Capricorn is very much that person, and that's clearly the opposite of moon energy that just wants to be comfortable and safe. It's almost like Capricorn gives what the moon needs, but in the sense, what the moon really needs is just to be nurtured. It wants a little bit of its own energy, not the complete opposite, right? So maybe those with moon in Capricorn might struggle to give themselves the security, the stability, the nurturing. They might have a hard time accepting intimacy or things like that. Also, too, it's kind of counterintuitive to think of someone who has their moon in Capricorn to be emotionally disciplined. They have such control over their emotions that they never lose control. And honestly, losing control is all about being emotionally healthy sometimes. Not to say that you should just go off the cuff and act a fool with everyone, and just when you feel something, just say how you feel. Like, I'm not saying to be reckless, but I'm just saying that to be completely disciplined all that the whole time and never allow yourself to feel because you feel like discipline takes precedent over expression is not always a healthy thing. There are times and places where you cannot act emotionally because literally your life could be at risk. But at the same hand, it's like that's where you want to have a little bit, you look to your neighbor, the moon in Sagittarius, and see the fun and being free spirit and all that other stuff, to allow yourself and give yourself permission. It's okay to feel out of control. It's how you act on being out of control that's the problem. And that's the thing with Moon and Capricorn. You might not even allow yourself to feel. You could feel something and not act on it, right? You could be angry but not act on it. But if you don't even allow yourself to be angry, then that's why it's in a detriment, because that's when you get emotional suppression. And then one day you keep putting pressure and pressure and pressure on that pipe till eventually it implodes. And then that's when you're looking at yourself and you're so hard on yourself for your pipe bursting, but you kind of have to let that pressure go and release that pressure little by little every day, instead of building, like shutting it down, stuffing it down and suppressing it, and then eventually like completely having all this shame and when things are completely out of hand at that point. So yeah, that's what I have to say, is that like the beautiful thing about Moon and Capricorn is that y'all are protectors, you're providers, especially when it comes to things emotionally. You definitely have emotional endurance. You know, if you're definitely someone who can be hit time and time again with the hardships of life and still bounce back. But a couple of things that I want to leave you with is, to the Capricorn Moon, you are the builder of inner strength, the mountain soul. I am allowed to rest. My heart matters too. I carry wisdom beyond my years. So definitely take care of yourself, Moon and Capricorn, because y'all will work, and neglect your own feelings in the process. So take care of yourself. Now, Moon in Aquarius. Now, Aquarius is an air sign. It's a fixed air sign. So this is interesting because it's fixed like how Moon in Taurus is exalted, and Moon Taurus is fixed and Aquarius is fixed. But the difference here is, is that Aquarius is a masculine sign. So you have Moon in Aquarius. So think about it. The moon the moon rules Cancer. Cancer is cardinal water. And Aquarius is fixed air. So we're mixing once again air and water. And here, like I was saying before, with also Moon in Gemini and Moon in Libra, is that there is a struggle between the mind and the heart chakra and the third eye. There's a battle between those two when you're talking about the moon in Aquarius, because Aquarius is also, I'm trying to think. So Aquarius definitely has a good mind, but there's always seems to be a need to process emotions intellectually. There's also that idea of they have to process and almost like, how do these emotions affect the collective? How does it affect society? How does how I feel about this, how does it have impact on others? Gemini was more so like, okay, for communication's sake, how can I say this instead of just saying how I feel? How do I say this so that the other person can understand? Libra is, how can I say this and have someone understand how I feel, but I also want to make sure that I don't upset their feelings, you know? Aquarius is more so like, how do I communicate myself, or how do I express myself emotionally in a way that is either unique or has like some type of social impact? It always has to be kind of like a more broader thing. They're always like, and so it's like, they can't like operate as freely either, because they're in such a cerebral space that they could care about others in the community and the collective at large, but the issue is that they don't feel them. That is like the difference, is that like Aquarius knows the community, it knows society, It knows what it means to be unique, but to feel unique, to feel the community, to feel one in the community, there could always be like a feeling of like feeling like the odd man out, or feeling that you're emotionally incompatible with most people, you know? And that's the thing too. It's like you want to be around other people, but you also kind of understand that sometimes it's difficult to be around other people if you know that the way you feel is different than how the group feels. You're very aware of how other people feel, but it's like you might feel like you're so off base with everyone else that you would rather just not indulge in emotional connection. It's like you're afraid of emotional connection because you're used to being misunderstood so much. So, but your heart is wired for collective healing. You need to be a part of a community. You need to, like, that's just a human thing, is to be a part of a group. Humans are very much pack animals. And even if you kind of feel different than others, that doesn't mean that people, like, you could always connect with someone off of feeling. Even if both of your feelings are different, you could be like, hey, I'm sad, hey, I'm mad, but we're both feeling. You know, the common denominator is the emotion. It's the feeling. It doesn't matter what type you have, because you do feel emotion. And if you tap into that emotion, you might relate to people more than you think. You know? And then also to kind of keep this in mind, the thing about Aquarius is that Aquarius might want to be so unique and so different than others that you'll convince yourself that you don't feel what everyone else is feeling. Like, everyone else just watched this really sad, like, you're with a group of friends and everyone just watched this sad movie. And you might not be crying. You might not express sadness through tears. But everyone else is sad and you are sad yourself. You're not crying, but you're sad. And sometimes you will try to convince yourself that you're not sad because you're not expressing it the way that everyone else does. And sometimes you might express emotions differently, but that doesn't mean that you don't feel what other people are feeling. And sometimes that's when the articulation comes into play with being a moon in Aquarius, is that you articulate like, hey, I'm not crying, but this is the saddest thing I've ever watched, right? So that's definitely something to keep in mind if you have the moon in Aquarius. So I leave you with this. To the Aquarius moon, you are the cosmic observer, the sacred outsider who loves from afar, but deeply. That's the thing that I think that's just an Aquarius thing, is to love deeply, but you might not know how to express it or how to show it to other people. And I leave you with this. I allow myself to feel fully. My heart is a bridge to the future. Okay, and then last but not least, we have moon in Pisces. Now, Pisces is mutable water, and the moon rules Cancer, which is cardinal water. So they're both water signs. The thing is that they're very familiar in that. So you depend on the potential for growth, improvement, because the modalities are different. Pisces is mutable, Cancer is cardinal. So they have different modalities. And that's why this could be a very, like, it can be a nice placement. Those with moon in Pisces are very sensitive people, depending on their rising sign or their other placements and such, what's in their first house. Excuse me, it might not be as easily seen of how super sensitive they are, but they are psychic. They can, kind of like that analogy I used where Scorpio likes to be at the bottom of the ocean, leagues and leagues down below the sea, because the fear of a vulnerability. With Pisces, you actually do go up and down the whole entire, like, of the ocean, you know? You know what it's like to be at the bottom of the ocean, but then you also know how to be at the top. You know how to be in the Atlantic, and then you know how to be in the Pacific. Like, you are well traveled in the world of emotion. And because of that, that's what allows you to be a practitioner in emotion. That's where the psychic ability comes into play. The thing is that like those with moon in Pisces, because everything seems so possible and every emotion seems so available, you could feel other people's emotions. They could feel your emotions. You feel this emotion, you feel that emotion. You could feel it sad for 5 hours, or you could be angry for a minute. Like you are such an adaptable person when it comes to like how you feel emotionally. Like the emotional variability that you get is just off the charts. And whenever you come into contact with someone, you could always probably have an emotional connection with probably whoever you come in contact with, you know? That's where that psychic ability comes from. You're such a well versed in the world of emotion and in water. So yeah, you could feel everything and everyone. The only issue is that like there might be an issue of boundaries, because you could be any and everywhere emotionally. There can be some like issues with boundaries. You might cross other people's boundaries. People might cross yours. But for sure the compassion can definitely be there, you know? And because you could be any and everywhere in emotion, and you're such a well-traveled person in the world of emotions, sometimes you could kind of take things with you and not realize it, that you're taking it with you, and then you don't even know where it came from. You're carrying this thing, you don't even know where it came from, because you're all over the world. For instance, like say if you travel all over the world, you might have I don't know, like maybe for an analogy, maybe you have gum on your shoe, but really you got that gum on your shoe in France, but because you travel so much, now you're in a whole other continent. You know what I'm saying? Now you're in Hawaii, and now you notice that this gum is on your foot, but you can't return that emotion back to where it is, so you got to process it, but you don't know where it came from. It can get very complicated very quickly, you know? So yeah, a couple of qualities I would say in Moon and Pisces. This is why people with displacement can be great musicians, great artists, because they don't necessarily have to have the experience to feel the emotion. That's why you see so many people like talk a lot of crap about people who are R&B artists who are like in their early 20s, who really haven't had that deep, intense heartbreak, but they're able to communicate it, and they're able to kind of like communicate that feeling through song, because for some reason either they could even tap into I'm a person who believes in past lives, so maybe they could tap into the pain and agony that they felt from a relationship lifetimes ago, and even though they're like 21 or something like that, and they're able to like tap into that energy from lifetimes ago because of the Moon and Pisces. Moon and Pisces, they're like time travelers. And what's that other one? That other superpower? It's like they're time travelers in the emotional world. They don't just it's not just time but space. They what's the word? They're travelers within a time and a space. They don't have to be born in 2000 and whatever to experience that energy then, because they're so well versed emotionally, if that makes sense. They transcend, that's what I'm trying to say. They transcend time and space when it comes to emotion, because emotion does transcend time and space, you know? So yeah, the last thing I would like to say about Moon and Pisces, to the Pisces moon, you are the dreamer of the zodiac, the mystic heart that dissolves boundaries. And I leave you with this affirmation: my sensitivity is sacred. I protect my peace. I am both grounded and divine. So with that, I would like to say this was a long video. I did want to go over each sign. I didn't want to really rehearse this because, like I said, this is moon energy. I just wanted to feel it, not think about it too much. And I hope you enjoyed this video. Please leave a comment about anything that resonated with you, anything that that you liked that I said, or if there was something that you didn't really vibe with, let me know about that too, because I love to learn. So with that, thank you for listening. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.